I remember when I came back from Australia, I wanted to start this coaching thing. I didn't have the same confidence that I have now. But it was so great to just start it.
You started already a YouTube channel. You had good feedback from it already. I'd love to know why did you stop? Welcome to this new episode of my podcast debut, where I interview people like Oliver who are starting their own podcast, or at least have the idea or started the process. And hopefully these conversations are really insightful to you as you're watching this, and if you're considering also starting your podcast. Oliver, thank you for coming. I understand that's the first time you're interviewed on a podcast. First question is, how do you feel?
Yeah, thank you. No, I would just take a little moment to also appreciate you for giving this opportunity to me and connect with like-minded people. So yeah, I'm a little excited and a little nervous actually too, and just, but I'm really just grateful for yeah, this opportunity.
Mm. Thank you, Oliver, and congratulations to you for having the courage to come and speak publicly and be on the show like this. Talk about your we'll talk about your purpose, your podcast, and if you have any questions, I'll be here also to answer that today. So I'd love to ask you to start with, what is your purpose on earth? Like, what really matters to you?
Right. Yes. I don't know. Yeah, purpose is, gets thrown around. Yeah, especially these days on the internet, because people might come to a time where they be more awakened to everything that's going on. Uh, so it's always, for me, it's a little misunderstood, because for me it's not something necessarily you do, but just by the fact that you exist, then you're already doing your purpose. So for me it's more, for me I think is to liberate myself from the things I struggle with, both like spiritually and emotionally. It's all connected. So especially for me, I think is to help and to inspire people to live a more free and exciting life, because I've really been lucky to be here, and the teachers I had and the parents I have. Yeah, to inspire people and to be the change I want to see. I think that's my purpose. Yeah, and then of course it can vary, like the things you do. So I'm in a position where I'm really open, so I'm not doing anything like specific right now. I had did a lot of coaching, and people say that I should always be coaching or helping people with the struggles. Yeah, I have actually tried to like have a coaching, a little small coaching business for a while. Before we started, we talked a little bit about Australia, and I got a degree in NLP, um, where you really learn to, yeah, to you learn a lot of things, but you learn like how powerful the words we use are, and how the linguistic we use that you know gives rise to the feelings we have and the results we have. So um, yeah, I mean, so I have given a little bit of coaching, so that might be one of the things I'm going to do again, and maybe in a podcast form, or we will see. But I hope that answered the question.
It does, yes. And you shared some powerful things here. I really liked your approach to purpose to start with, and starting with the inner purpose and then looking at how does that also manifest in the outside. But Eckhart Tolle put it really well in his book A New Earth, which is we all have that inner purpose of presence, of gratitude, of being our best selves, and then how it manifests in the world can look very differently than in terms of outer purpose. And then the outer purpose is going to evolve, is going to change. And it's
Right.
during your life. So yeah, I love that you share that. Also regarding coaching and NLP, that's cool actually. Yeah, I love also the idea of when you talked about coaching and the podcast. That's what I do also partly in with this podcast is part of this podcast, if you're available for it, is to coach live people on the podcast. And that can be a powerful way to do a podcast that people don't always think about. When they think about podcasts, they think I
Right.
get an expert, ask them questions on their expertise. But you can totally do coaching on the podcast, and that can sometimes be more powerful than having an expert because it's more lively. I'd love to ask you, do you have
Yeah.
ideas around what your podcast would look like?
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? Because I think I'm really like broad in my view, so I have a hard time to sometimes narrow it down to what it specifically would be. I remember when I came back from Australia, I wanted to start this coaching thing, and people kept asking me, people that really have seen done some of the same things as me said, you have to narrow it down, you have to be more specific or whatever, like. Um, but I really like the one-to-one like coaching, and I think I'm really great at to be able to see the way we speak and where we stuck in our language, and how that the patterns it is become easier and easier for me because we all are just patterns, right, and habits. So we all have like specific um there's some main patterns in people, and they manifest differently, but the root is almost the same, if that makes sense. So I'm being better and better to see that really quickly. So like a coaching one-on-one, I really love that. And also like a in a group setting could be cool too, if that is possible. These days you can do anything, right, with podcasts. And even me, I get a little bit stuck sometimes, like to see oh yeah, it's only like one people interviewing another and then just having a conversation, but it could be so many things, right? um so yeah, the one-on-one and the coaching and the just the listening and the reflection to the other person that comes for help, or would be really cool.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you broaden it also. Yeah, podcast can be interviews of experts, it can be conversations with peers or other people, it can be coaching a client, it can be a solo episode of you speaking, it can be a panel with many people. And yeah, it's interesting what you touch upon also that you like different topics. There's often the question of niching or not that can come in. If you're doing one-on-one coaching, when you do one-on-one, fundamentally you don't have to niche. And then with the podcast, it can depend on like there are advantages to niching or at least to present it in a certain way. So for example, when you spoke, I was like, okay, NLP using words like, podcasts around like words as spells or like something that where you use that, but then you can open in different ways. So these are all questions, that we can also explore on the podcast. But usually
Yeah.
what I find interesting to make those decisions is to start with why and what's the goal with the podcast. Because if the podcast is a passion project or a specific support to a specific business, it can be different. So if you tell me, hey, I just want to do it for fun and see where it leads me, it's totally valid reason. That's how I started. But it's going to be a little bit different than if you tell me, hey, I really want to monetize as quickly as possible through my coaching practice. And then it's going to be a different way to build a podcast. So I'd love to ask you, what are your main goals with the podcast and tying that to your main goals currently in your life? Yeah.
Yeah, I really think that as during the first time I started the coaching after Australia, I was really dependent on it would take off and make some profit and do things like that. And I was really like low on the financial side. So it was more like in a rush and was really like forced, and I just couldn't like, it just didn't make sense to me because I was so passionate about it. But on the other hand, it just didn't you get any traction. So I was just, why is this not happening? But I realized that I was so impatient and I was trying to force it through, right? So I've been actually a little bit afraid of like starting to, okay, it needs to be have a goal and have had to, be profitable and stuff like that. And just starting with the fact that I want it to be really fun and really like, because I'm enjoying doing it. But then again, nothing like, you don't have to do like one thing and then wait for the other. It can be both at the same time. So like the ideal will be to have as much fun with it and still have a goal that haven't don't have to be rushed, but still like clear, if that makes sense. Because yeah, so I actually think it would be cool to have it as a passion and to have fun and still like make a living of it in long term. And but for me, it's I see myself doing a lot of different things, but that could definitely be one part. Um, so yeah, I a little bit of both would be my answer. Both to be fun and both to be, and also to be like yeah, to get some profit and get some out of it and connect with people.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you, Oliver. And I love the nuances in your answers because, of course, it's good to know, but it's not black and white. And you probably often want something a little bit in the middle where, of course, you want to have fun and be passionate about it. And at the same time, get results from it, whether it's like in terms of views or monetization that also makes sense and supports everything else you're doing in your life. Yeah, I love that. You're
Yeah. Right.
you're also very comfortable with having a conversation already. Like I can feel you're very genuine and just having a conversation, which when you do a podcast with a guest is often makes it easier sometimes as just speaking on camera, for example, because it is actually a more natural way to have a conversation. But also in your case, Oliver, I find that you're already, yeah, very comfortable talking on camera, talking to me today. So congratulations. And I'll share a little message right now with the viewer because if, like Oliver, you're considering starting your podcast and maybe you're feeling still hesitant or not super confident, well, I think this podcast is a great opportunity for you to be the guest for a first time. So if you're considering starting your podcast, you're in the process, check the link in the description and you can apply to be a guest on this show. And I'd love to have a conversation with you and maybe do the first podcast, your first podcast together. Or if you still feel a little shy, you can also reach out to me. You'll see the link in the description. And thank you for watching this episode. Yeah, Oliver, I'd love to ask you also, when would you want to start your podcast?
I can see that there's no hindrance for me to start like right away because I have a lot of free time right now. Um, so yeah, for me, I'm open to whenever like it's available to me. Of course, life happens sometimes. I can't see why it shouldn't be in the near future.
Mm. And how long have you thought of starting your podcast?
Yeah, so for me, it's been a little bit of a journey with the whole thing. I was to give you a little bit of context. I was in Norway for a whole year, like 3, 4 years ago. And I actually started a YouTube channel because I think I thought I have something to share and something that could benefit people, and then yeah, I started it, and it was, for me, it was a little bit, it was definitely harder to do because I was more nervous about it and I didn't have the same confidence that I have now. But it was so great to just start it, and I was just overwhelmed that even though it was so small and it was only a little bit of it was not that long I had it, but people were so positive and just messaging me like, wow, I really love listening to it, and you can and it really helped me in my life, people were saying. And I was just like, I was thinking those videos were kind of like bad quality kind of shit, and and just really not that great. But you yeah, that's one of the things too, right? That you can't you never know the impact you have on people, um even though you're you're the biggest critic of yourself, right? But you can, if it just have to resonate a little bit, and you never know what resonates for people with what you're saying. So yeah, it was yeah, I started that, so that was a thing, and that was 3 4 years ago. So, and then a lot of things in my life had happened, and really, I think since COVID have just been on this spiritual journey about realizing new things about myself, and thought I was um enlightened almost, and then just got straight back to new challenges. So yeah, I thought about it a lot of times, and I obviously I started the coaching too, right? And got an NLP course in Australia. So it had been really been up and down, and just me also dealing with life and what happens privately too, in my small family, like my mom, dad, and my sister. Um, so yeah, it's been an ongoing process for a while, and just wanted to share things and help people. So yeah, that's is there's no like specific time to it.
Yeah, thank you, Oliver. It's cool that you started already a YouTube channel, that you had good feedback from it already. I'd love to know why did you stop?
Yeah, so yeah, to be really honest with you, I was in Australia there. If I think it was 2021, and then I came back. Um, I had a lot of work. I worked in the forensic psychiatry in Norway. So it was a lot of yeah, quite what would you say, a hard situation with the job, because I worked a lot, and had a lot of um things to deal with there. And then I could just feel that I wanted to come home again. My experience of Norway for that year was over. So I came back, and I came back, yeah, to Denmark in March 2022, and then two weeks after that, my mom and my dad, they were moving from this small town we lived in to another town, to like actually to give their relationship a last chance. And then my mom, like a little bit out of nowhere, I mean a lot of out of nowhere, she just collapsed on the kitchen floor while they were moving, and I wasn't home, so I was coming home. I was another place, and I come home with bus, and then they were both lying there. And then, long story short, she had like her main arteria to her heart was bruised. So she just went in, and then the doctor said that they wouldn't know if she gonna survive, and then she, yeah, then fortunately everything worked out, and she was in sleeping state, coma state for a week, and then she woke up, and luckily actually they everything was all right. She, obviously been through a crazy recovery period after that, but that, made things to deal with that, and started everything to, yeah, just to be uh, to be with my family, and take care of those things. So yeah, that set us up, and then, yeah, things got better. I got a new job at the hospital in Aarhus here in Denmark, and yeah, and then I traveled to Australia, and did the NLP, and did a lot of bunch of things with some cool guys, and drove a van and built a van, and some cool things. Yeah, and then it's yeah, that's why it stopped at that time. Um, yeah,
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Oliver. Thank you, and I'm glad your mom was fine in the end. It's
yeah,
an
absolutely.
interesting, yeah, it's interesting to share because that's why I also generally like to include some goals or especially monetization in the picture, is because life is life and there's things that happen like this. And so for us to prioritize the podcast or the YouTube channel, it's much easier if it's also a revenue generating activity, right? It's easier to prioritize it when there's some
Right,
emergency, when things change in our life, when we need to work more, for example. And so that's a yeah, that's a good example. And by the way, I say podcast and YouTube channel, there's a lot of overlap. Like my podcast, I prioritize YouTube. I generally recommend people to prioritize YouTube for their podcast. Podcast can be interviews, but also solo. So just speaking in front of a camera on YouTube can be considered a podcast too, for example. So there's definitely some overlap then between what we call traditionally podcast and doing solo episodes on YouTube, and some people do interviews on YouTube, and so I include them together just to
right.
be to be more exact on this. I'd love to ask you, so now you feel it's getting the right time to get back into the YouTube channel and podcast in whatever form that ends up being, right? I'd love to know what is your main challenge when it comes to doing it?
Yeah, right. So that's such a good question, because I think lately, there haven't been any excuses for just starting, but I've been, yeah, I've been living. I've actually been spending a lot of time with my family in this last, what, 6 months, and something needed to um be dealing with there. I had also myself a lot of things that yeah, to be quite honest with you, I had a lot of like troubles with, um what would you say, with, like how actually, like, when it comes to nutrition, and what is best for me, because I'm really like super quick to understand things, and to see a lot of things um on, for example, social media. And one thing is to see that what's not good for your body, right? To avoid things because that it might not be the best quality or whatever. And another thing is just to let yourself be and find the balance between those things. And that has been really a trouble for me. So there's been some crazy fasting periods for me, and some periods where I just was so down, I just didn't really know what to do. Like, how can I balance this, and what should I eat or what should I not? And that's been really, really, really tough, to be honest. Um, so so that was really like a thing I needed to deal with, and now I'm in a different place with that, and just it keeps betting, keep betting, is keep yes, it's way better. Um, but still, like in the back of my mind, sometimes to find the right balance for me. Also, I don't know if there's something also to do with just the shifts, like the what would you say, like the human slash spiritual shifts in me. That like sometimes you need some nutrition, sometimes you don't, and it really is about context and the different periods in your life that you need different things and what's good for your body. So I'm in such a new better place for those things and have I learned to balance that more. I think that's like right. It's great timing to have this interview with you right now because I'm more open and I'm more relaxed and I'm more like ready to receive more. Um, yeah. So there's never hasn't been like any maybe like also I can have a tendency to overthink things a little bit. So like the practicality of it, like how should I do it? Instead of just starting it. What is the first step and so on. And it's so crazy, right? That you just there's actually an app, that you said we're watching it on right now or doing it on right now that Riverside is, and it's just holy shit, that's so easy, right? you just you yeah, you just sometimes I'm at least for me overcomplicate things. So yeah, so those yeah, to answer your question has more been like something to do with me and the practicality of it and maybe to be ready to be open for it. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Definitely, in my experience, coaching people to start their podcast, doing these interviews, what I'm seeing is often it's, yeah, the overthinking. You're talking about the procrastination. They usually the thing in the way, and then the reasons can be tech. It can be more self confidence on being on camera. It can be different things. Actually, that's why I started this podcast too, is because when I have people on the podcast like this, well, first they go on camera and speak like you're doing now, Oliver. So they realize they're ready. Often they realize it's like a break. It can be really a breakthrough just to have your first time as a guest on a podcast already. So that's one thing. And the second thing is often I go like, let's not be perfectionists, let's do it. And then some people like you will be just on their phone with an app without a mic, and it'll be like, that actually looks and sounds pretty okay, and I could start with that. And so it really tackles both of these big
Yeah.
things that get people from starting, which is, let's say, self beliefs and confidence, being online, speaking on camera, and the more tech aspect, whether it's
Right.
hardware or software. Yeah.
Yeah, this it's so funny, right? We just our biggest we are ourselves is just our biggest obstacle for it because it's so easy nowadays. If you just have a phone, you can just get going. And then you can, if it's you find it fun and you can build it and then better check and better, things and invest in that. So yeah, it's just it's so easy nowadays to to like practically do it, and then it's just ourselves that's stopping us from it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Oliver. I'd love to ask you
Yeah.
also with your the podcast and YouTube channel. Do you want to do mainly interviews or solos and you speaking or a mix of both? Do you already know?
Yeah. So I've thought about that too a lot actually. I think it would be fun to do both, but I think it would be like the main thing would be to have somebody on it, like one on one. But I also because I also like to write and I love to express myself through writing. So I have especially since COVID I have done a lot of writing and a lot of reflecting. that would be cool to share those things because it sometimes it flows for me more naturally to write it down, and the insights you get while you're writing is also pretty powerful sometimes. Yeah, I think it's gonna be, yeah, a little bit of a mix, but like the main, like 70% would be, or 80 would be, have somebody in and coaching them, or yeah, in a group setting, and then sometimes just me, just sharing something I have on my heart.
Amazing. I love that. And like this, you can, yeah, you can definitely build confidence for people, right? For your audience in your skills, also for the person you're coaching straight away. And yeah, I think it's very smart, especially if you want to support your coaching business to do this way, where you coach people on the podcast, and the person you're coaching might want to work with you. The people who listen, it's a highly leveraged activity, which I think is quite smart. And then doing some solos, and then you can. It's also a good self expression. So yeah, I love that, Oliver. Um, we're we're already 30 minutes, so let's start winding, like closing down the episode. Is there anything else you feel like sharing or discussing, or maybe asking me for this podcast episode?
No, I mean, it's been really fun, and I think you really are easy to talk to, and yeah, I just love that you can have this opportunity, because obviously I don't know you and you don't know me, and we just randomly connected because you're willing to just put something out, and then I was just responding to it. So sometimes it's just to take a chance sometimes just to do something, and it don't have to be like we're so sometimes occupied with the absolute, right? If we do this, then we have to do like the other thing, and we have to go all in. And sometimes this could just be this, or I can have a feeling of, okay, I really want to continue on this journey, and it don't have to be either or the other way. So just to yeah, to do it and to try it, because you can really yeah, you don't want to miss out, right? You really want to do to take chances, um even because then you just sit there and you're old at some point, and then you just are really in regret of what you didn't do. So yeah.
No, that's powerful.
So
Thanks,
yeah,
Oliver.
just thank
Yeah,
you, Alex, to have been on this, and it was just really great.
yeah, thank you, Oliver. That was powerful, and you took that chance. So congratulations also for you taking action and just having a taste. That's what it is, right? You come here as a guest, you have a conversation. It's gonna be published. You see how it is. It's a first taste of it. If you want to take that chance too as a viewer, thank you so much, by the way, for watching until the end. And again, check the link in the description. We can have a conversation. And thank you for being here. If you want to support, of course, subscribe, share this video with someone who could benefit from watching it. Leave a comment. I read them all, answer all of them, and like the video. And thank you so much, Oliver, for joining us today. Much love, everyone.